We begin this academic year in the name of our gracious God, the source of all wisdom and truth, known in Christian confession as Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Please join me in prayer. Eternal and merciful God, we thank you that every day is a reminder of your goodness, faithfulness, and mercy. Each day witnesses to your care for us and for all your creatures, evidence that your love is profound beyond our searching out. Today we especially thank you for the callings you give us here at Wittenberg, to teach, to learn, and to serve. Even in this challenging time of the pandemic, these callings remain and endure and take on many different expressions. As we virtually gather at this time in convocation, sustain us in this important work. Give good health and safety to all. In your goodness, make this time of challenges also to be a time of possibilities, and guide us how we might help and serve others in just and loving ways. Enable these challenges to become occasions for our growth in character and resilience as we seek after your wisdom and truth. With all the voices who give you thanks, I ask these things in the name of your eternal wisdom, Jesus, your Son. Amen. May you each have a really good and safe semester.
Welcome to our Opening Convocation, an event that traditionally marks the beginning of each new academic year, and this year is no different. We're celebrating, but like so many things this year, we have to do it a little bit differently. We're not in Weaver Chapel, where we might be, and we're not all together physically. But I hope we're all together in our excitement about a new year at Wittenberg, excitement about living and learning together, and an excitement about the mysteries of what this year will bring. Today we have a chance to hear from two of the many great teachers at Wittenberg. We're going to hear from Julius Bailey and Brian Yontz. I'm looking forward to hearing how they kick off this year and how they get us started with a new year at Wittenberg.
Thank you, Pastor Toon and President Franson, for those words of greeting. Let me add my greetings and welcome to all of you participating in this year's convocation, in particular to the entire class of 2024. Welcome to Wittenberg. It is now my distinct pleasure to introduce the speakers for today's virtual convocation. In recognition of his dedication to student learning, the care he shows students, and his engagement across campus, Dr. Brian Yontz was awarded the Alumni Association's 2020 Distinguished Teaching Award. The energy, creativity, and commitment he brings to all of his work is truly remarkable. Dr. Julius Bailey was selected by his faculty colleagues to receive the 2020 Collegium Award. Colleagues and students describe Dr. Bailey as a fabulous teacher in and outside the classroom. Like Dr. Yontz, he basically glows with dedication to student learning and growth. Through his engagement with the community, he expands the classroom for students and deepens Wittenberg's roots in our community. All of these reasons, and the fact that we are living and learning together in unusual circumstances, led me to ask them if they would consider participating in our hybrid convocation this year, sharing their thoughts with each other and all of us. Happily, they said yes. So it is with great pleasure and deep gratitude that I now invite you into a virtual conversation with Drs. Bailey and Yontz that they have titled Mask On, Masks Off. I am because we are.
Thank you, Provost Mattson, and welcome everybody to the opening convocation for the 2020-2021 academic school year. Normally at this time we are in the beautiful Weaver Chapel, sweating like crazy in our robes, but today here I am in my air-conditioned cool office, the second floor of Blair Hall. But you know, on behalf of the entire faculty and staff here, welcome back to campus. It's been a long time since March 9th when we first saw activity on this campus, so welcome back. For those of you that don't know me, and most of you probably don't, my name is Brian Yontz. I teach in the education department at Wittenberg. I'm also the department chair. I'm starting my 15th year here at Wittenberg, and I teach a lot of first-year classes, including an FYS this year. So shout out to Section 8, the best FYS section there is. I see you all out there. But I mainly teach courses around educational policy and sociological perspectives in education. And so I do a lot of thinking about how schooling and education impacts different people groups, how history and policy impacts the institutions and where we learn. And so, you know, I'm excited and honored to be part of this conversation today. I'm also the 2020 recipient of the Alumni Award for Distinguished Teaching here at Wittenberg, and quite an honor to receive that award last spring, or to be named for that award last spring. And so I do want to give the chance to my colleague, Dr. Bailey, to introduce himself. But before he does, you know, students, I really want you to hear, you know, from this individual. Dr. Bailey is a nationally known mover and shaker, and the opportunity to engage with him today, not only you know, for myself but all of us, is quite an honor. So I'll toss things over to Hollenbeck up the hill a little bit to Dr. Bailey.
Well, thank you, Brian, and I certainly appreciate the love you gave me. All of you who are watching, welcome. I am Professor Julius Bailey, and I teach in the Department of Philosophy, and I do hold several hats around campus. For one, I direct our Justice, Law, and Public Policy minor, which those of you who are concerned about democracy in America should certainly consider. I am also our pre-law advisor, where I help you to sort of consider the process toward and the various routes to a successful law application and legal career. Lastly, I direct African and Africa Diaspora Studies, that minor. Yeah, I do a lot around here, and that's actually why I live on campus, right? I actually have been living on campus now for 5 years because, quite frankly, I don't have time to drive home nowhere, right? And so a little bit about me, though. I grew up on the south side of Chicago. I grew up primarily in Catholic schools. I almost became a priest, but I got derailed by some public school girl named Gia in my junior year, and it reminded me that there are other ways to serve the church, right? I came to Wittenberg in the fall of 2010 after teaching at 4 other schools in 12 years. I must say, though, that this has been the most productive 10 years of my entire life. Wittenberg, mainly students like yourselves, have challenged me to become the best that I can be. Of course, it has been frustrating at times, and that's gonna happen. But when I tell you that because of ideas and even research assistance of WIT students, I've been able to write 4 books while here at Wittenberg. I've been able to pen 9 or 10 academic articles or chapters just within these 10 years at Wittenberg. In some respects, it is because I've sort of had to keep up with the excellent model of people like Professor Yontz and other colleagues and how they exemplify excellence in the classroom and outside the classroom. But it's also because we at Wittenberg are an institution that values knowledge, and we value the production of knowledge and civic engagement. And so writing is sort of one of the ways in which I found my path to kind of do both, right? Matter of fact, the very reason I'm speaking today has nothing to do with what you might think is my good looks, right? But but I know that it's because I was honored to be the 2019-2020 faculty award recipient for excellence in innovation in teaching. So, you know, that's me in a nutshell. As my sister brags to her friends, you know, you can find me on Google. I'm highly Googleable. And so you could dig up all you want to know about me there. So I want to ask my esteemed colleague to kind of join back in. You know, sir, everybody around campus right now is masked up for COVID-19 protection. But when we think about education, how can we look at education more of a process of being unmasked?
Yeah, so, you know, as we kind of had this conversation, Dr. Bailey and I, we came up with a title for this conversation called Mask On, Mask Off. I am because we are. And so I've got my mask here, and, you know, it's clearly been on all of our minds as part of our normal everyday routine. And the two of us cannot encourage you more to continue to adhere by these protocols, and, you know, make that mask just as, you know, the same part of your daily routine as your car keys and your cell phone might be. But I do, you know, want to respond to Dr. Bailey's question about, you know, what does perhaps removing a mask in a metaphorical sense, you know, have to do with becoming educated. And as best as I can tell, and, you know, kind of determine, I've been thinking about this a good bit, is that there's two purposes of masks. I think masks temporarily changes one's appearance. And I also think masks serve as a barrier. And that latter purpose is kind of what we're, you know, endorsing and espousing as a nation right now, is, you know, utilizing that as a barrier to transmit this virus. And so with either purpose of either using it as a barrier or temporarily changing one's appearance, when you take it off, you feel a sense of freedom. You know, we become a little bit more vulnerable. And, you know, oftentimes we associate democracy with freedom of action. You know, this idea, and, you know, we've seen this a lot lately, that, you know, individuals' freedoms are being, you know, infringed upon, and, you know, we're kind of losing that. But freedom of action without freed capacity of thought is just simply chaos. And so I think I want to focus on that second idea of freed capacity of thought and kind of what that means. And you know, that's academic language that you know, you're certainly going to run into in my classes, this idea of becoming a freed thinker and freed capacity of thought. But you know, what I would link it to would be this idea of becoming highly educated, somebody that's you know, growing in their freedom of thought. And this is very different from schooling. Schooling is a term that, you know, we tend to utilize when we think about what goes on in a schoolhouse or on a campus, and something that, you know, particularly for you first-year students, you've spent the last 13 years doing for 182 days a year, for 6.5 days or 6.5 hours a day. But I want to push that a little bit and suggest that schooling is different than becoming highly educated. And perhaps becoming highly educated is much, much, much more important. We tend to rely on campuses, we tend to rely on schools to help with that, that growth of education. But it certainly does not start there. And you know, Dr. Bailey and I are both parents of children, and we're thinking about college and things like that. And is it worth it? And is this campus and our schoolhouses really the only place where we can grow in our education and develop that freedom of thought? And you know, to be completely vulnerable myself, this summer, and the things that have been happening in our nation have developed myself in a way where I've become more highly educated this summer on a number of things. And I didn't set one step into a schoolhouse. I didn't earn one extra degree. I became more vulnerable this summer. I dropped some of those barriers. And because of that, I think that I became more highly educated, or I grew that freedom of thought. I also think that, what we engage in, particularly in schoolhouses and on campuses, we tend to become so focused on particular subject areas, or the major we select, or the course of study that we go through. And I would suggest that those specific disciplines or the major we select are just simply vehicles to becoming more highly educated, or to achieve a pure freedom of thought. Being a scholar in something, in a particular subject, does not guarantee freedom of thought. And so I think that one of Dr. Bailey's alma maters, Harvard University, taught us this in the 1940s, that specific disciplines or specific subject areas is not necessarily the pathway to becoming highly educated. Harvard University in the 1940s proposed this idea of a focus on traits of mind, this idea of developing one's mind in a way that we learn skills and abilities that help us kind of self-govern and provide that freedom. And they proposed the idea of becoming a more effective thinker, communication of thought without interference, making relevant judgments, and discriminating among one's values. And so I think that as we begin this academic year, I would push us to become unmasked a little bit. Not literally, keep those masks on, but become unmasked in the sense of, drop some barriers. Be willing to, expose oneself in a way that, you become a little bit more developed in your traits of mind. Don't worry about the majors. Don't worry about the specific subjects. And, I'm sure faculty are cringing when I say that, but, focus on developing these traits of mind that no matter what vehicle, you choose to kind of get you through your time here at Wittenberg, you're developing some traits of mind that will really help you become more educated. The final thing that I think that comes to mind when I think about this idea of how this process of unmasking might be related to becoming highly educated is that, becoming educated is a social process. It involves others. It involves the authors, the artists that you're engaging with when you're, reading, when you're looking at their work. And though this social process is absolutely something that Wittenberg does well. I think it's something that you're going to find good engagement with your peers and with your professors. And I would say that, becoming educated is not preparation for life. It's a way of living. It's in the here and now. And, I think that, Dr. Bailey can really speak well to this. Julius, one of the things that, every time that we've had the chance to break bread together or, share a drink, I think that I am always, I love to hear your stories. I love to hear your background of, a very fascinating journey to where you are now. And, I think it would be apropos for particularly our new students to kind of, learn a little bit about your background and, your journey. And so, how has your background and experience helped you in becoming unmasked? You wrote a whole memoir about it, so we can certainly check that out. But how has your background helped you become unmasked by understanding your responsibility to others, to your neighbor, and to ultimately to improve humanity?
No, Brian, I appreciate you asking that question. Wow, I mean, I think one way to look at it is that, I was literally expelled from 2 grammar schools and 2 high schools. My mother birthed me at 16, and she went on to graduate from high school and college to become a certified public accountant. My life is about courage. Masks can easily hide, as you mentioned before, what you don't want the world to see, right? But I, sort of similar to our Democratic presidential nominee, I was a stutterer. I still am a stutterer, for instance. No one in school wanted me to read a paragraph, right? Growing up, right? Because it took me too long to read, but I did. It may have taken me a bit longer to read that paragraph, but I knew I had to. I could have hidden, I could have masked that part of me that suffered inside, but I figured, hey, everyone needs to share in this. I was also a fat kid growing up. Now, someone watching this just laughed right now. You probably laughed at me too when I was a kid and I split my pants on the playground because they were too tight, or I didn't get a school shirt because they didn't have my size. I could have hidden behind that mask too, Brian, but I made sure that I wouldn't allow the shame to debilitate. We all have things we wish we could hide about ourselves, but they are the constitutive elements of our identity. The process, as you talked about earlier, of unmasking is not easy. It creates vulnerability. Luckily, I had people who refused to allow me to hide. Those who ensured that I had community. That is what unmasking means to me. It's community. It begins alone in that moment, but it ends up with community. Exposure, vulnerability, yeah, but community building and team building, that too. I had to learn how to create Team Julius. Right now, in your lives here at Wittenberg, you have a FYS faculty member, a co-facilitator, and a peer mentor. Unlike whatever number that Professor Yontz just said, shout out to my FYS class and Heath and Sailor. Shout out to y'all. I think we number 20, but it don't matter. But we're number 1 in everybody's hearts. The reality is that we are your team. We're going to be the ones, if you allow us, to sort of help you break out, build up, and unmask. That is our responsibility as Wit Tigers. But more so, I think as Professor Yontz talked about in terms of societal responsibility, that is our responsibility as caring people in society. I am truly because someone loved me, Brian. No, I cannot suck all that love up for myself and not share it out to others. My life motto is clear, and it's pretty consistent. My job on earth is to disturb the comfortable and to comfort those who are disturbed. That's what I do. And that is what it means to me to unmask myself and to allow others to be a part of this journey with me. Because quite frankly, man, we aren't in this thing alone. And so as I turn this back over to you, I do want you to think about, I want the students to think about that important distinction you made between sort of learning, qua learning, and this idea of education. The Greeks said it like this. The Greeks called this sort of everyday learning of stuff, they called it techne, right? Techne, or even they called it episteme, right? Yeah. The idea of sort of creating knowledge of something, right? As you said, a field, right? I remember when I was in college, they used to go around asking, hey, what's your field of study? What's your field of study? And we in philosophy say, only cows have fields.
That's right. Yeah, I heard the same thing.
We don't have fields.
Ohio State, yeah.
We do it all, right? And so I think there is one thing to say about that learning, but I think the learning you're calling for, and I'll turn it back over to you, the learning you're calling for is what the Greeks call paideia, right? Paideia, P-A-I-D-E-I-A, I believe. Paideia. And paideia meant a sort of a construction of who we were, a sort of a character building, a sort of an unmasking to allow ourselves to become our fuller and truer selves. If we can get that through, if we can talk about the having light and passing it on, but our light must be clear. Our light must be uncovered. Our light must be unmasked.
Yeah. And one of the features of paideia is that it involves community, which you referenced so well. And so before we wrap up, I do want to kind of share some questions that I think Dr. Bailey and I would like the first year students in particular to kind of consider as they get together next week on the 8th of September for their FYS section. And so, one thing that I think that would be helpful for you to think about is, when we talk about community and if we're truly developing our own Team Julius's, how will meeting others that are different from you help with that unmasking? This is a place that may look a little bit different from the towns you come from the schools that you've graduated. And so, this idea of how will meeting others really help you developing that team, insert your own name there. And connected to that is, what's your strategic pathway to develop that team? I think that, again, if you get the chance to have a meal with Dr. Bailey and, understand the way that he has been influenced by, people you see on television every single night and the way that he's influencing others, there's some strategy there in how that team was developed. And so from this point on, how are you going to do that? How do you seek the investment of others into your life and as part of your success, not just here at Wittenberg, but as you leave this place too? And then finally, I think we want to leave you with this idea of discuss the potential distinction between this idea of becoming highly educated and much schooled. Again, I think, Dr. Bailey and I are somebody that are both very, very much schooled. We went to school for a heck of a long time and got some degrees, but that doesn't mean necessarily that we've established this idea, this becoming highly educated. Again, this summer, I grew tremendously in my level of education and didn't set foot in one classroom or earn one additional degree. So before we leave, just wanted to give Dr. Bailey the chance to kind of get in the last word. If there's anything you want to final wish or a final challenge that you want to share with our folks today.
Well, again, just thank everybody for this experience. I know there were a couple of you at first was probably on your phone tweeting or whatever, but then you heard Professor Yontz was like, what is he talking about, right? So pay attention, guys. Listen to what your professors and everybody has to say and make this experience the best that you can possibly make. Tiger up.
Thank you all. Tiger up.
Every year at Opening Convocation, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce you all to this year's student senators. Wittenberg Senate offers students opportunities to hone their leadership skills and abilities by serving as leaders throughout campus and on subcommittees of the faculty and the university's board of directors. Student Senate consistently advocates for a better Wittenberg student experience by encouraging the entire student body to become more engaged in the life of the university and by providing opportunities for all students to live the Wittenberg values of creativity, service, compassion, and integrity. Student Senate meets weekly, and I have the pleasure of serving as the advisor to this dedicated group of students who volunteer their time and talent for Wittenberg. This year's Student Senate has set ambitious goals. They seek to find creative ways to provide additional support to students and helping to facilitate a safe campus environment. They wish to help students become more aware of the many resources and opportunities available to them on campus. They wish to rethink how we as a university use various campus spaces and resources and changing these to better attend to student needs. And they want to better the relationship with the student body and making students aware of the impact that they can have on Wittenberg policies and processes. One of their very first tasks of the year, however, is to hold elections for our first-year students. Elections will be held on September 8th, and we encourage all first-year students to get involved and vote for your class senators. Without further ado, it is also my pleasure to announce that our 2021 senators are President Emmanuel Tomes, Vice President Alexandra Joseph, Treasurer Stephanie Engel, Secretary Jillian Pasca, the Faculty Student Coordinator is Amor Nixick, the Public Relations Senator is Jojo Thomas, the Senior Class Senator is Charlotte Hurst, the Junior Class Senator is Alex Jordan, the Sophomore Class Senator is Morgan White, the American International Association Senator is Saqib Rashid, the Concerned Black Students Senator is Leah Blander, the Fraternity and Sorority Life Senator is Courtney Buck. The Gender and Sexual Diversity Alliance Senator is Eleanor Boru. The Green Senator is Cameron Spencer. The Student Organization Senator is Josie Pazig. The Residence Hall Association Senator is Joshua Terrence. The Student Athletics Senator is Michael Osmond. And the Interfaith Senator is Olivia Riddle. Thank you to these students for their leadership and dedication to campus. I look forward to working with you and throughout the great year. Thank you.
As provost, one of my greatest pleasures is being able to celebrate the professional and personal accomplishments of the faculty at Wittenberg University. This year at Convocation, we are recognizing the promotions of a number of faculty on our campus. I'd like to recognize Dr. Sherry Rebar, a professor of nursing, for being awarded tenure at Wittenberg. The following individuals were awarded tenure and promoted to associate professor. They include Dr. Tim Bodie in business, Dr. Sunny Zhang in business, and Dr. Amy McGuffey in education. We also have a number of faculty members who have been promoted to full professor this year. They include Dr. Stephanie Little in psychology, Dr. Chris Raffensperger in history, Dr. Kathy Reinsel in biology, Dr. Ray Dudek in chemistry, and Dr. Katie Warber in communication. Congratulations to all of you.